Okay, I'll assume that most people have come in from the waiting room. I recognize one or two of the faces, and they will know what I'm going to say, because I vary very little in my encouragement. My encouragement is mindfulness, but not self-consciousness, which oftentimes people seem to get confused with. They say, I am cleaning my teeth, I am walking slowly, I am. But no, this is not mindfulness, this is self-consciousness. So my encouragement is, why? Why would we be mindful? Call it mindful, call it bare attention, awareness, consciousness, call it what you will. But why? Why would we be mindful? And again, it's possibly a trap a lot of people fall into, on working really hard at being mindful. But why? We often forget why we're doing this practice. And as far as I can see, it's to see that place that is prior to our thinking mind. And when I say our thinking mind, I'm talking about our deluded, attached mind, our conditioned mind, our mind of views and opinions. To get to know, we practice these practices to get to know that is prior, that is before this conditioned mind kicks in. It can be, oftentimes, concentration can be extremely useful in the beginning. But again, why? We could possibly become good at concentration, which often is upset very easily when somebody upsets it or gets in the way or makes a noise. But again, why? In the present moment, there is that opportunity just to see things the way they are, to see the mind, to see the heart mind is naturally at peace. It's always at peace. It's ungraspable because it's no thing. It's spaciousness, yet it knows. It comes from a place of true wisdom before our conditioning. So I encourage looking at why, looking at when we feel our feet on the ground walking. What happens if we don't project, oh, I'm feeling my feet, I'm feeling my heels. No, just feel the feet, come back a little bit, step back a little bit, and get perspective from that place of no thing. It sounds quite difficult, but actually it's very simple if we just look. If we just look within, get to know that place, get to trust it. And I say trust it because basically we're control freaks. We think that we have to control the world. We have to control ourselves. And if I want to be a great meditator, or if I want to be awakened or enlightened, I have to do it. The problem there is we cannot do it. It's not possible, because you cannot fix the problem with the problem. You cannot fix samsara with samsara. So again, let's look somewhere else. Let's look within. Let's look at that place of true knowing, of true wisdom that is silent. In many traditions, or one that I specifically know, you come to this point, you discover this place of no thing, this place of true awareness that is not a vacuum, and you take it to your teacher and tell them, and their response is, now the practice begins. Because it's not me any longer trying to become a good meditator, trying to become awakened, trying to become enlightened. It's for its own sake. It's letting go, which, as far as I can see, is what Buddhism is about. It's about letting go, not grasping, not trying to become, not trying to get rid of. Understanding the anicca dukkha anatta, understanding change from moment to moment, understanding suffering, really understanding how deep it goes into our conditioning, not just when I stub my toe or somebody upsets me, but really deeply. And getting to know, getting to see that place of no self, which you can't think out, you can't rationalize it, but you can know it. You can know it right now if we don't project pictures and desires and views and opinions onto things. This is not about the intellect, but it's not about putting the intellect down. It's about balancing the, let's say, the intuition, to give it that name, with the intellect. But at the moment, we, I'm talking generally here, are completely controlled by the intellect. We believe in the signs and not where the signs are pointing to. We believe in the map and not the landscape. We believe in the cookbooks without eating the food. And that's a difficulty with spiritual paths, is we can actually imagine that we've filled ourselves with truth or spiritual insights. But let's look prior to all that belief, all those beliefs. Buddhism is not about exchanging from one belief value, or Christian or Hindu, or Muslim, or whatever, and just having another set of Buddhist belief values. They're just belief values. They're just illusions. But those values can, if you see them as signs, or I like to think of them as seeds, can germinate, can flourish if we let go. And again, another stumbling block, we cannot let go. You often hear people say, let it go, let it go. We cannot let it go. Because that's me. That's the self, the ego, trying to let go of itself. But if we just pay attention to our heart, or the heart of the mind that is prior to the thinking, then there is an automatic letting go. We don't have to do anything. We just have to be aware and look in that quiet place. Learn to trust that quiet place. Learn to see that we can function completely, in fact, more efficiently, from that place of no thing. Once we let go and see through the illusion of having to control or add or get or become, but we do need to prove it to ourselves in a sense, just by continually coming back to the present moment. If now you're feeling your seat or whatever you're sitting on, or your feet if you're standing, or your hands if they're together, if you just sense that, and you don't need to think about that, you'll notice that the mind is at peace in that moment. Now, you can hear what I'm saying. If you're looking at my picture, you can see, or you can see the computer screen in front of you. It doesn't prevent anything at all. We can function completely smoothly. We don't need this separate self that is in the way. What I'll do is I'll do a couple of periods of sitting meditation, and I normally do a guided sleeping meditation, moving from, say, the top of the head to the back of the head to the sides of the head, etc., through the body. Now, please remember, what I'm encouraging here is not about the body. For instance, I might say, be aware of the fingernails or the eyebrows. I cannot be aware of my fingernails. I cannot be aware of my eyebrows. But I can be aware of how my mind stops in that moment if I'm not projecting pictures onto it, onto my fingernails. So just the important thing is noticing how the heart mind is in that present moment. Going through the body, bit by bit, each time, each movement. Just notice. Spending time with the breath, not following the breath in the nose or the throat or the rise and fall of the chest or the belly, but just being aware of that gentle breathing process. Listening. If you listen to the sound of silence, just listen. If you're listening to that, if you're listening to that silence, there is awareness, which isn't dumb or stupid. It's completely aware. So I'll just do a very small introductory chant, paying respects to the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, and then we can do the basic meditation. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddham dhammam sangham namasami. So sitting in a posture that's helps you to maintain your awareness, as in if you start to fall one way or the other or slouch forward, there's an instant reminder there. Remember, there's nothing to get or gain here. It's just being aware, just noticing. So generally, myself is I have my eyes slitted open, focusing or not focusing, but just seeing 4 feet in front of me. But if you're used to sitting with your eyes closed, whatever, that's fine, whatever you're used to. Again, ideally hands together, but if you're used to sitting them in the yogic type posture on your knees, fine. Pushing the crown of the head up very gently, which brings the face more vertical. Again, these are ideals. These are just helpful. There's nothing holy in any of these things. They just might help us be a bit more aware. So being aware of the body from the tips of the toes to the top of the head. To say, not projecting, not putting pictures onto it, just noticing that peace, that quietness of the heart mind, of the mind, when we are in the present moment. Just gently breathing, normally breathing, nothing special. So now becoming aware of the top of the head, bringing it into your consciousness, your awareness. If you cannot be aware of the top of your head, which will probably often be the case on different parts of the body, that's absolutely fine, because we're only interested in noticing that peace and quiet of the mind, of the heart, before our thinking process kicks in. So now letting that awareness spread down from the top of the head, down the back of the head. And the sides of the head. Becoming aware of the ears and the earlobes. What happens to the mind, to the heart, if you try and become aware of the earlobes? Odds are you can't, but you can notice how the mind is at peace. Now becoming aware of the forehead. And the eyebrows. And the eyes. And the nose and the nostrils. Becoming aware of the mouth, the tongue, the lips. And the chin, and the jaw, and the cheeks of the face. Now bring into your awareness the whole of the face, the whole of the head. Just noticing. Now letting that awareness spread down to the neck, around the neck and the throat. Remembering there's nothing to think about here. It's just being aware. Now becoming aware of the shoulders, from the neck down the shoulders. And from the shoulders down the arms to the elbows, the sides, the front, the back of the arms. And from the elbows down the forearms to the wrists and the hands. Becoming aware of the hands, the back of the hands, the palms of the hands, the thumbs, the knuckles, the fingers, the joints of the fingers, the tips of the fingers, and the fingernails. Now bringing into your mindfulness, your consciousness, your awareness, your hands, your arms, shoulders, neck, head and the face. There's no need to make pictures, project pictures. Just notice that place of peacefulness, that true refuge. So now letting that awareness spread down from the shoulders, down the back, down the sides of the trunk, the shoulder blades, down the spine, the arch of the back, the coccyx, the buttocks, and the hips. Now becoming aware of the chest, the rib cage, the lungs, the sides of the trunk, the diaphragm, the solar plexus, the belly, the stomach, the navel, the intestines, down to the groin and the hips. Now bringing into your awareness the whole of the trunk of your body, the back, the hips, the back, the front, the shoulders, the hands, the arms, the neck, the head and the face. Just into your awareness. Nothing to do, nothing to get, nobody to become. Now becoming aware of the legs, from the hips down to the knees, the sides, the back, the front. Noticing feelings, not interfering with them, just noticing them from that place of awareness. And becoming aware of the lower legs from the knees down to the ankles and the feet. Now becoming aware of the feet, the tops of the feet, the sides of the feet, the soles of the feet. Becoming aware of the toes, the joints of the toes, the tips of the toes, and the toenails. What happens to your mind, to the heart of the mind, when you look to become aware of the toenails? I can't, but I can notice how my mind just is in that very moment, is at peace. Now bringing into your awareness, your mindfulness, your consciousness, the whole of your body from the tips of the toes to the top of the head. Being aware of the breathing, just the normal, simple breathing not altering it in any way or following it, just in your awareness. Listening, just listening to the silence. If there are outside noises happening, don't go out to them. Don't interfere with them. They come and they go. So just listen for its own sake. Notice how that anchors the mind, anchors the heart mind. Brings us back to the present moment. When the mind wanders, which is its nature, it's divisive by nature, that's what it does. It's just for us to notice that and perhaps come back to a place, part in the body or the breath or the sounds or sound of silence, not to stop thinking, because that's automatically happens when we are present. So if necessary, stretching your limbs, whatever. But please don't think in terms of meditation coming to an end. There is always an opportunity to be aware, to notice, no matter what we're doing, whether we're talking, watching the TV, reading a book, having an argument with the boss. Come from that place of awareness. Notice how we don't get carried away. Meditation is something that we, at times like this, we're building a foundation, so to speak. But the house is built on top of that, and that's where the true practice is done. During our ordinary everyday life, every moment, remembering every moment, just to come back. Nothing special. It's very, very simple. In fact, possibly too simple, because we like complications. We like to have to do things, to do techniques, etc. But just when talking to somebody, when you're standing talking to somebody, just be aware of the feet. And that gives you, that anchors you. So you can see more clearly. You can respond to the other person instead of reacting to them whilst cooking or cleaning your teeth or walking. Everything is an opportunity to get to know that place, to get to live from that place. And I think this is the practice of the Eightfold Path, because we cannot do that practice because it's a self-doing right view, right thought, right speech, right action. I am doing this, I am doing that. Well, it's probably better than being totally confused all the time. But it won't necessarily liberate you from our views and opinions and the delusion we live in. But by getting used to being in the present moment, we can truly be right view, right thought, right speech, right action, etc. I cannot do them, but they can be outcomes of being aware, being selfless for that short time becoming longer and longer the more we persevere with this simple practice of awareness. So shall we sit for another period? And then I think, depending on the time, I'll invite some questions. And I do encourage people to ask questions, because it gets different things come out of this. Because I'm talking to a group of many people here, so I might be saying something a little bit different if I were talking to an individual. So if somebody asks a question, it comes from another angle, perhaps. So again, sitting in that posture that helps you with your awareness. If the body doesn't allow you to sit up straight or whatever, it really doesn't matter. You just find other ways of things to help you to maintain that awareness. The odd reminder this time in this session, instead of taking you through the body. So just gently coming back, using the body or a part of the body or the breath or the sounds or the sound of silence. Awareness is awareness. So as long as we're aware of something that is actually in the present moment, like the body, the breath, or the sound of silence, and then there is an automatic letting go of the thinking process. We don't need to create other thoughts. Just be, just learn to be. So just noticing how we get caught up in thoughts and then returning to the body or the breath. Never beating ourselves up or saying this is difficult or hard. Just come back. as being with the body as a whole or a particular part of the body. Don't stick to one part. What's more noticeable or easier to be aware of at the moment might not be in the next moment. So shift your awareness, because as I say, awareness is awareness. Or just being with the breath. Noticing how the mind settles. So if sleepiness is coming in or the mind is starting to wander even more, just add a little bit more energy of awareness in the body, not to become something, but just feel the energy moving in the body, which can help us to be aware in the present moment. So I'll ring the bell in a couple of minutes' time, but as I said before, do not think in terms of the meditation coming to an end. Only this formal sitting will come to an end, but the meditation continues in awareness of stretching, of breathing, of movement. So does anybody have any questions on meditation or my particular encouragement or comments or criticisms or whatever?
Good evening, teacher. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
First of all, thank you very much for a wonderful evening. You mentioned this evening the mind and the heart mind, and you mentioned this sort of consciousness or awareness that is not conditioned. My question is this essential awareness, does it reside anywhere? Does it reside in the body or in the mind or the heart, or both the heart mind, or neither the heart mind, or nowhere?
It resides. It is. I can't see that it can be put down to one thing, because the trouble is, it's just, a good analogy that sometimes used is it's like space. It's completely open and aware, and it contains everything. It contains this room, this building. If the space weren't there, there would be no room or building. So it's not something that you can nail down, so to speak. It just is open awareness. To be experienced. And I think it's quite simple to experience it by getting to know that place through being present. And it's nothing to do with the presence. It's nothing to do with mindfulness. They give us the opportunity to see that space. And then we need to get to know it, so to speak, get to trust it, because we tend to overlook it as just, well, it's just emptiness. I mean, I'm not thinking, it's just, what good is that? But if we really get to know it and trust it, we find that we can function and live very, it's our true refuge. We live in a very contented, spacious way. I can't really answer your question better than that. I can only know that place, but I can't grasp it because it's no thing. Is that making any sense at all? It was you, Cole, who asked that question, wasn't it?
Carl, you're muted. You have to unmute.
My apologies. Yes, my apologies. I'm not very good at this sort of thing.
Yeah, I joined the club.
It does make sense. It makes a lot of sense that there is I would say a non-experiential. I was listening to one of the teachers on Monday night who said that it's not something that you can go looking for with thoughts or words or ideas. It's there to be experienced. It's sort of like putting your finger in the water and feeling and experiencing without trying to put it into definitions or preconceived ideas or words. It's what there is, from what I understand, which is beyond the thinking, rationalizing, structured process, conditioned experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It cannot, fortunately, it cannot be grasped because we have a habit of ruining everything we grasp. We try to use it for ourselves. But this true knowing place that can't be known is our natural state. But as I said before, we need to really experience it and to trust it because our conditioning is so deep that we need to really see that we can function completely from that place. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with the intellect. The intellect has just taken over completely. And we believe in the signs more than where they're pointing, or as they say in the Zen tradition, there's the finger pointing at the moon. All we're interested in is the finger, but this is not, it's the moon up there that is of interest. The teachings point to this place, but we become so wrapped up in the traditions, in the techniques, and we're only looking at the finger. We're not actually looking to where they're pointing, to that place of no thing. Now, generally, I say to people, they say, well, I said, well, okay, feel your backside on the chair or the seat you're on now. Without thinking, there's no need to think about this. But when we are present, we're just feeling that sensation without projecting pictures. What happens? Well, generally, in fact, always, people say, my mind is at peace, my mind is quiet. To call it mind, I don't know of any other word for it. It's at peace. So can you hear? Can you see? Can you think from that place? Yes. It doesn't exclude anything. It's just coming from a place of clarity, not from this place of illusion, delusion, and views and opinions and attachments. But the tricky thing is we cannot grasp it. It knows, but we cannot know it. We can just be it. It's very funny with trying to use words for this place that is of no place.
Thank you.
My pleasure. I hope it helps a little bit. It's really very tricky, very difficult to put it over, but actually quite easy to experience if we really stop. in that place of awareness and notice. But we do like to complicate things. As an old teacher of mine used to say, simple, simple, why make it simple when you can make it complicated? We prefer the complication often. Okay, Barbara.
You mentioned the intellect a few times. Would you make a difference between intellect and intelligence?
Personally, I would. I don't. For me, intelligence is that place of true knowing. What in the Theravada tradition they call the silent thinker. When we get to know this place prior to the thinking mind, there's the true, the quiet, the silent thinker. So that's what I see as true wisdom, say, to use the word wisdom. Can you ask that question again?
You mentioned the word intellect a few times. And my question is, would you make a difference between intelligence and intellect? But I think you might have already said it.
Yeah. I'm just trying to. Yeah, you see, generally I'm not overly impressed by what we call intelligence. You know, there was a couple of years ago, I was listening to the radio, and there was a scientist in Scotland, and they have a crow. Well, we know crows are quite clever and can make tools, but this crow had been brought up by itself, a solitary crow, yet it still knew how to make a tool, a hook. So the scientist said, well, this is how we judge intelligence. But my question to him would be, what do you know that you have not been told? This is generally what we call intelligence, is stuff that we've been told. But I think we need to look for our true intelligence. Call it intelligence, call it intellect. Yeah. Intelligence, I don't know. You know, we can send people into space, yet we can't be happy. We can't be content. I would say that was intelligence. I know I'm not answering that very well, but because it's...
Can I say something?
Please do.
To me, intellect is something learned, something that is not innate, whereas intelligence is innate. I'm asking this question.
But do we truly know what is innate? You know, from our deluded obsessive, neurotic thinking minds. I don't think well, in a way I could say that it seems to be what this practice is about, is getting to know that, getting to know that truly human side of us before we add all these veils of views and opinions, etc., etc. So I would say that that place of true wisdom, that place that knows, that can't be grasped, is our innate nature.
Yeah, I think that's I think what it's the best answer. It's what I feel.
Yeah.
The place.
See, my encouragement is always the same, but it's really, I don't want to tell anybody anything. I don't want to, I do not teach anybody anything. But I truly feel that if people just persevere with returning from the present moment, from being with what is, they will discover this.
Yeah.
Just naturally. It has to be. This is about being completely natural, normal.
Yeah.
And it has to come forth if we just let go. Of course, as I said before, we cannot let go, but there is a letting go when we're in the present moment and noticing. So, yeah.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, I can see you now. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I ask a question, please?
Please do. Yes, just go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you for that session. My question was around what you were saying about bringing awareness to different parts of the body and yet not bringing up mental images of those parts of the body. And this is something that I've been thinking about quite a lot as well. So your observations are really timely. And what you were saying also was about the fact that when you say, bring your awareness to your fingernails or your intestines, you can't really do that. But what's interesting is what happens to your mind at that moment of bringing awareness to those parts of the body.
Yeah.
But what I find with my practice, and I don't know if this is common, is that it almost invariably comes up with an image of that part of the body. Now, is there any guidance or any way that you can disassociate those two? Because I have tried, and then when I try it, that becomes a struggle. Mm-hmm. So it's almost impossible for me to do a body scan and bring awareness to toes or whatever part of hands without visualizing those in my mind at the same time, bringing a mental image of that. And to me, that's also tied up with the self, because what the image that is coming up are my hands, my nails. So moving away from that place where there is no thing, getting to that place is a real barrier when you have mental images of your parts of the body as you do your meditation. So if you have any guidance on that.
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, can you see my nose? When you look at my nose, your attention is going towards that point. Now back off and take in the whole picture. Can you do that? It's just like that. Yes, there is an image of my nose, there is an image of my fingernails, but I'm backing off. I'm not honing in on my fingernails. I'm backing off. When I walk, initially my attention goes to my feet, but then I back off. So there's an awareness of my feet, but I'm not going, this is what grasping, clinging is. I'm not going to my feet. They're in my awareness. And this is the important thing. It's experiencing the world from your place of awareness, not from your place of zoning into this or that, because that's grasping, looking for something, identifying things, etc. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't get rid of the you project a picture onto your fingernails. Okay, but just come back. Start to see life's happening from the place of awareness. Make any sense?
Yeah, thank you. It does make some sense.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there seems to be an inherent contradiction between focusing on a particular aspect of your body and then zoning out or zooming out and taking in everything.
You don't want to focus. There's no focusing involved. Just nails. Yeah, the attention will go to the nails, and that's just a thought. If I truly am sitting quietly and I went my attention to the nails, well, there are no nails. My body is only a projection from that place of awareness. Look from there, practice from there. See if, when you're sitting, when you're aware, can you find a body? Can you find a self? Can you find a thinker? Can you find a gender? I can't. And I've never met anybody who can when they're in the present moment. These things need to be looked at time and time again. Can I find it? Is there a self? Not, the Buddha says there is no self. They're just words and ideas. They're pointers. But for us to look, can I really find a self? Can I find my fingernails without projecting? Try it from those angles. Andy, was you up to?
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Ajahn Barry, for taking these classes. I really appreciate your unique take on the teachings. It's something that I only seem to get from you, actually, that sort of perspective. Trying to practice and cultivate awareness and taking the time to do that. Sometimes I found myself being on the receiving end of really quite harsh criticism, in such as being labelled lazy, work shy, or having no get up and go. And although I understand that there's a great ignorance in that, maybe my small ego mind has some hurt feelings and confusion about that, especially considering that it came from somebody that I held in really high regard. I wondered if you might have any words of encouragement to sort of overcome those sort of afflicted emotions in terms of being like attacked in that way, for just really trying to kind of cultivate a broader perspective.
I mean, for one, try and cultivate an invisible practice. I you know, I
but
know
by just sitting there and looking at the sky, it's even like, you know, it's I suppose it's like that, because we live in such a busy world and people are always doing stuff. If you're not running around, that sometimes that actually sort of gets other people's backs up. I'm not like trying to be showy about it. Believe me.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I look, it's an individual thing. I don't know you. If we were talking, you know, face to face, it would be different. But I would say that sometimes we need to be discreet, so to speak. And if it does get up other people's noses, which is basically their problem in a sense, but if it gets up their noses, perhaps we need to be a little bit more discreet in our practice, and maybe bring it more into our ordinary, everyday movements. Yeah, you know, it's great. Sit there. I love sitting. I've got a great view from where I live in Spain. And I just sit there and look without identifying, without saying how wonderful. I can see it's wonderful, but I don't have to label it. It's difficult sometimes because we have we also need to care for the other people. If we're causing them to be upset, we need to perhaps be a little bit more discreet with our practice. I know that I've worked in, before becoming a monk, worked in some pretty rough situations with some pretty rough people, and it would be unlikely that they knew I was into anything different from them. They might, after a while, think, oh yeah, his behavior is different, and they might ask why. But I tried to practice in a way that wasn't too visible. If somebody does attack you, that causes an emotional reaction in you. Now that reaction can be sort of, for want of a better word, contained in the body, especially in the belly area, that what they call the hara, the Japanese call the hara. So that is energy. That energy can be transformed, can be allowed to transform into more mindfulness. So that can be, to want a better way to put it, be used. Yeah, is that emotional energy. Initially, the mind reacts. Then it goes to the body for energy. And then that energy goes back into the mind. Oh, the people are so unaccepting of me doing my practice. But if it goes to the mind, to the body, and stays in the body, just as a fire, as a furnace, it's life's energy and very valuable to be used. Use is not the right term, but to be transformed into awareness, into mindfulness. And then those things start to, become more mindful, become more adept to being with difficult people or whatever, or being upset. But it's turning Mara, the deceiver, into your friend, the one who's helping you, because their energy is not being wasted. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, it does, because in fact, I think really, whilst like I didn't like being attacked by somebody particularly very close to me, it actually sort of gave me more faith. Ultimately, it was like maybe perhaps more of a mirror to their own very, very restlessness.
Yeah, there is that as well. But it's really very much for you. This is your practice.
Mm.
How they are, how is possibly not going to change until you have completely, you see, they're not going to insult you or whatever if they think they're not getting at you. If how do I put it? If you're not reacting to that, if you're being with that energy, there's nothing for them to have a go at. It sounds a bit, but I've experienced it in very difficult situations. Just being abroad somewhere and half a dozen guys coming at me, and and I'm aware of my feet. And in that moment, they see intuitively that there's nothing there to hassle. So make it your friend. Transform that energy and see what happens to them, because people do tend to change in a way. They they want to battle, they want to feel superior. But if there's nothing there to feel superior to, they cannot do it. You have to experience this. You have to really, really be present. See how tomorrow, when you go to work or whatever you do, just be in the body and see what happens. Find out for yourself.
Thank you.
Barry, you referred to, thank you very much, first of all, for a very helpful evening. You referred to yourself as a monk.
Well, I was, not now.
Could you explain? Please don't misunderstand my question. I'm not questioning the fact that you're a monk. I'm just very curious as to what made you a monk and what made you stop being a monk.
It's a long story. I practiced as a layman for many years in the Zen tradition, just 12 years, not being fully ordained there. Became a little bit disenchanted with my teacher and swapped over to the Theravada tradition, Luang Por Sumedho in Amaravati. This is back in the 70s. No, I actually made the swap in the 80s. And I started to, I was really dedicated to the practice, to visiting monasteries all the time. And, but also I was quite suspicious of teachers. Anyway, it happened that I went to Thailand with Luang Por Sumedho as his attendant, as a layperson. And I was so impressed with him, by him, I actually thought, if this guy this guy is the real thing. He's no bull, he's the real thing. And if he can do it, I can do it in the monastic system. Also, I was leading classes, so-called teaching, for many years before being a monk at the monasteries. And people used to say to me, do you need to become a monk or a nun to be able to practice properly? And I would say, no, you do not need to become a monk or a nun to be able to practice properly. Well, I spent 18, 19 years in the monastic system, many more years living in the monastery as a monk and a novice. And the conclusion I came to on that same question, do I need to be a monk or a nun to practice properly, is you do not need to become a monk or a nun to practice properly.
Which country were you in?
Sorry?
Always in Thailand?
No, I spent time in Thailand and in Sri Lanka and in England, Italy, and helped start up a monastery in Portugal.
Very interesting. So why surely once a monk, always a monk?
It's a bit like being a smoker. Once a smoker, always a smoker. But sometimes you manage to give it up. I felt, because I was quite late, I was 50, 54, 50, something like in my early 50s, which was a little bit above the cutoff date, time for allowing monks to ordain in the West. This is, and had a lot of life experience and teaching experience, so to speak. And I thought I could play more part being in lay life, be of more help perhaps in lay life than I could be as a monk, because a monk's very secluded, very protected.
Very interesting.
It's a tricky question because, you know, you spend all these years and you have these questions of yourself. And
so the obvious question now is, do you have regrets?
No. I can honestly say I do not have any regret at all.
Wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure. Well, I think...
Hello.
Hello, where are we? Yeah. It looks like
I'm
661020.
not actually sorry about the number. I don't know why it comes up automatically, but thank you very, very much, as always, for the wonderful talk. I wanted to go back to an answer you were giving to an earlier question, where you were approached by people and aggressive people, and you kept your awareness on your feet. In parallel, you talked about harnessing the energy within your sort of stomach area. So I'm not sure I followed it completely. I wonder if you could expand on it a little bit.
Which part, the energy or the awareness?
Well, I understood each one by itself, but you kind of linked them together, and I didn't quite follow the link, how you were linking. On the one hand, it was like, sorry, go ahead.
This is the problem with doing an online class. Different people, if I hear a different thing, then I will suggest a slightly different practice for them. Yeah?
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I can't say more than that. I know that to it happened to be my feet at that time that I just returned. It's not my feet, it's just the awareness. Had I been made angry, then I probably would have contained the energy in my body, in my hara, in my belly.
Yes, that's what I would have understood as well. You know, that one, you're containing the energy, because what you said is that when the people were approaching and you put your awareness on your feet, then it takes the steam out of their aggression, because
they
see you as being empty. And that's kind of different from harnessing it in your, so I wasn't quite following it, but so you're kind of descending your energy into your feet and kind of not being a threat to them.
I'm being aware of my feet. I'm not necessarily sending the energy into my feet. I'm just being aware.
Yes.
But I would say for other people and for myself, I would class myself as being a very angry person when I was younger. So that practice of, say, harnessing or letting the energies being in a furnace in my midriff, in my belly, in my hara, was a very suitable practice for me then. But it's not one that fits all. What does fit all, as far as I'm concerned, is just being aware, learning to discover that place prior to the thinking, conditioned mind.
Yes, from which everything stems, it seems. If you, the more in touch you are with that, the more the appropriate action follows.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I think time is getting on, and I hope it's been of some value to you, and I sincerely hope that through this simple, extremely simple practice of just remembering to come back and notice how we truly are before our conditioning kicks in. I truly hope that you'll persevere with this. If you haven't, maybe you do, and learn to live from that place and be content and almost unshakable. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this meeting and wish you well and wish you good, consistent and persistent practice. Okay. Goodbye, everyone.